Many of you probably started learning English in a classroom setting. There was a teacher, there was lots of students. When you look out on the interwebs, there are many ways to improve your English. There's programs, there's coaches, there's tutors, there's all these things and options. But really, what's the difference?
Let's talk about it.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to White Wolf Friends English. The difference between these few options, between teachers and tutors and coaches, the approach, the focus, and the cost.
And those can be really big differences. So we're going to hash them out in this video, and then we're going to talk about what our preferred approach is ourselves. Everybody's a little different in that area, but what our preferred approach is, and then what we actually do in our own program.
So let's start with English teachers. Their focus is to deliver curriculum or a course to a group.
There's going to be a lot of role plays, exercises, flashcards. I mean, there's lots of different resources that they'll get you in contact with, but you could have as many as 50 students to one teacher, or maybe you have small classes of 12 to 15 students to one teacher. The approach is to guide a group through a specific curriculum that is centered around like general English, like an ESL class, or maybe it's more focused on a topic like business English, or it's for general preparation for something like an exam. Either way, the topic's the same. It does not change by the student, by the individual student's needs. It's just a set curriculum and the teacher walks everybody through. It's kind of like a one-size-fits-all approach.
Yeah, it's very not niched down. The other approaches that we're going to talk about today are, but this is a one-size-fits-all blanket approach that students come in, they do the program, they do the course, they go through that class, and then they go out, and then they're able to better function in that general sphere of English. The cost is a lot cheaper because it is split up between a lot of different students to one teacher. So if you have 50 students to one teacher, it's easier to make that a cheaper class because you have a lot of people paying for it.
The next one are English tutors. Tutors are just like the opposite of English teachers. Rather than 50 students paying $10 per class, you're going to get one student paying $40, $50, $60 per class. And what happens with an English tutor is you have all of that expert's attention just on one student, private one-on-one tutoring. Now, as you can imagine, this also means it's the most highly customized plan. So whatever that student needs to get to their goals and to work through troubles that they have coming from their native language into English, all of that is worked through in a tailored program for them. We've had experience being English teachers, being English tutors, and being English coaches. Back when we were English teachers, we had one curriculum that the school gave us, and we had to teach it to everyone. We wanted to have more time for each student, but we just didn't have it. When we were English tutors, though, I loved this approach because we could just create a whole new curriculum for each student. But as you can imagine, you can't have as many tutoring students. So the expert's time was divided among a few, but the cost was higher in order to, for the tutor to be able to live on. These English tutors, they focus on building a specific skill, or like grammar or reading or writing, or a specific test like TOEFL preparation, but specific to that student's needs. Or maybe they work on preparing for a specific event, like maybe there's going to be a speaking engagement, or maybe they have to lead a training at their job in a few months and they want to be able to do that well. Or maybe it's going to be practicing a sales pitch or preparing for a specific high-stakes interview. Whatever it is, it's going to be specific to something. And so usually tutors have a smaller time frame that they work with somebody. Sometimes just a few hours in 1 month to prepare for something at the end of the month. Sometimes it's focused lessons for 2 years on general improvement in a certain area.
Either way, it means that the tutor has to spend a lot of time, and that time is basically made up by the fact that the student gets a fast track all the way to fluency. It still takes a lot of work on both parts, but the tutor tends to spend hours and hours outside of the class time prepping and getting ready for that class, so that 1 hour stretches as far as possible for the language learner's needs.
Yeah, usually that hourly rate for a tutor is meant to pay for all the back end hours that they also put into that one class hour with that student. So there's a lot of preparation that goes into it, which is why tutors and their rates tend to be much higher. If you find a low rate tutor, a tutor that they charge $5 an hour, $15 an hour, odds are they have some resources and curriculum that they teach through with everybody. And so you're paying for that individual attention. You're the only student in class, but the curriculum likely wasn't designed for you.
The last one that we're going to talk about today are coaches. The focus of a coach is to develop the student's skill levels kind of holistically. You're looking at the overall learning, the mindset, the habits, the building, the motivation, instead of focusing so much on the specific skills. Can I do this or can I not do this? A coach tries to get the student to be in the right mindset in order to continue to grow this outside of the class. So coaches have a very valuable place, especially for a person that's already pretty motivated, to kind of get them and head them in the right direction. And then they kind of get their hands off of the student and then let the student progress forward by themselves.
Yeah. In a way, it's like teaching the student to be able to grow on their own. And so some coaching programs, they're only 6 weeks. Some coaching programs are 3 months. Some of them are 6 months or longer. And it really depends on how much tutoring and teaching is involved in that program as well. Coaching programs also vary in size. Some of them do a lot of individual work where you're meeting privately with your coach. A lot of them have cohorts where there's multiple people in a small group, or in a mastermind is a common word you will hear to describe these. But kind of what's going on and the price of the program really depends on the size of the program, what that coach actually does, how involved they are, how much they work with you one-on-one. Okay, so one of the big questions that we get is, which one do you prefer? Do you suggest one over the other? Is one better than the other? Which one do you prefer?
The answer really comes down to where are you in your language learning journey. So for example, a lot of people start in the right place, which in the beginner levels, an English teacher and a decent sized class is a good place to go. There's not a whole lot of like private tutoring help that you can get that another person can't get as well. If we're learning numbers, then a lot of people can learn numbers at the same time. Will it be faster with a private tutor to learn your basic numbers in English? Yeah, sure. But if you're learning those numbers, then you might as well have a friend that's learning those numbers as well. So on the beginner levels, it's really easy, and it's probably actually a good idea to get that social learning aspect to say, hey, I can speak English and my friend can speak English too.
It's also helpful to do those role plays. That really helps in those larger classes. It's something that you lose when you get into the smaller classes. It just doesn't happen as much. Now, at the intermediate level, this is where things start to change. Everybody has a different budget. They have a different closeness to English, whether their language is kind of close and shares a lot of words like French or Spanish versus something like Ukrainian or Russian. Those are very different. Mandarin, very different in its structure to English. So there's a lot of big differences. And so how close your language is kind of determines what route you take in your intermediate levels. Our personal preference at the intermediate levels was to continue taking classes, but then support it with some private tutoring for the things that were harder to understand or things that we just weren't getting, or for the big things that were they felt so different from our native language, from English. That was really important to work with a tutor and just kind of hammer things into our head. The difference between the 2 or 3 yeses in Mandarin, for example. We don't have that in English, so it was very difficult to kind of work that out and try to feel out when is it appropriate to do this versus this. Having that tutoring time was helpful. We wouldn't have gotten that individual time necessarily in a class setting.
In the advanced levels, our preference is to lean into the coaching element of English, to kind of continue to build the practices, because when you get to the advanced levels, your motivation can really shift. Why are you learning English now? Before it could have been a hobby, before it could have been for a job, but now you've kind of gone past the point where you can have a conversation with another person. So now the real question is, why are you doing this and how do you move forward? And so having those coaching opportunities to kind of person can keep you directed in the right direction, but continue to supplement those with private tutoring can really, really help your fluency as you progress into the upper levels of English, because it can be a difficult place to continue to move forward instead of just kind of sitting back and being okay with where your English currently is.
It's difficult because before the advanced levels, you felt like your English was just growing. Every time you had a class, every time you read a book, every time you did something, you learned so much. Once you get to the advanced level, now you're not learning as many tangible things or physical things with English in a way. You're not learning about, this is a shelf, this is a recipe, and I'm following it and learning how to read it and cook it. And look how I did. I learned the word stir. You're not necessarily learning that kind of language anymore. Now you're learning to advance your synonyms and get those all interconnected. You're learning some nuances. You're learning some difference in formalities and cultures. And this is a fun thing. It is interesting. But if it's painful for you, you're going to plateau pretty quick, and it's going to be difficult to kind of move on from there. And this is where that coaching element can really help. It helps with motivation, it helps you keep going. It helps give you some fresh ideas and fresh starts and fresh ways to look at things. And it helps you shift gears from learning like an intermediate learner to learning like an advanced learner. So there's a big difference there. That bridging into the advanced English, going from advanced to fluent, is a very different ballgame than going from zero English to high intermediate ever was. That's why we really suggest doing the coaching plus private tutoring. Private tutoring helps fast track you. It helps you get a little bit faster because you get to work on things that are specific to you. You get to have the expert's attention and focus specifically on what you need to know to really grow. But the coaching helps with the overall mindset and holistic learning as you make that major shift in your journey.
And then the last stage of your language learning journey is towards mastery, which honestly can really just be helped by having private tutoring. You need a person who's just zeroed in on how you speak English, zeroed in on the mistakes that you make, and maybe not the mistakes that you make, but how you can say that more impactfully. You're going to find people here that have been experts in their field for a very long time, and they basically have an apprentice as they try to pass down some of the knowledge that they've gained so the next person that comes after them can almost replace them in a way as they try to push towards that direction, whether it's mastery by being able to write poetry, beautiful English poetry, or being able to communicate in a very powerful way on stage as a keynote speaker. These people look to people that are already fluent, they've already made it, and say, how can I have a greater impact on the way that I speak, in the way that I communicate?
And there are people like this. We've worked with several people who are already fluent, had been fluent for 20 years, but they wanted to go deeper. They wanted to be able to engage with the language like their kids who were born here do. And that's very different. It's a very different level of English than just being fluent. So not everybody has that goal, though. Then not everybody has to progress to these levels. Again, everybody has a different budget. Everybody has a different schedule. And there's different things that happen in life and things that make it easier or more difficult to do these paths. So everybody's journey is unique to their own. When we are asked, this is kind of how we are because this is what we prefer with our own schedules. Now, what do you do? What do we teach? What level do we teach and how do we do it?
So for us, what we do at Fluency Fast Track is that we do the private tutoring plus having the small group coaching. This ensures that you have the mindset shift that you are ready for and also the skill building that you need. This is exactly how we have designed Fluency Fast Track so that we can be able in our program to meet with students one-on-one. You're not a face in the crowd. We know you by name. We know the mistakes that you often make. We can correct, we can give feedback, we can give homework, and then you send us that homework, which is incredibly valuable. This is the thing we wanted when we were in China. We wanted to be able to fish for ourselves, but also have a person who's regularly checking in on us and saying, hey, are you doing this right? Or are you still doing this? Here's an exercise that might help you.
If you are interested in Fluency Fast Track, you could check out the link below. If you're interested in our private tutoring, we really only do that with our Fluency Fast Track students now so that we can give most of our attention and time to them. So if you're interested in it, go ahead and check out that link below. But otherwise, go out and find what you need. Find what you need for your level. Go find what you need that works best for you and helps give you things. Can you reach fluency without engaging with each type of teacher? Yes. Can you reach fluency on your own? Yes, it's doable. It's possible. But can you get to where you can really actively hold down a conversation well and with nuance and meaning? That takes working with native speakers or people that have significant experience communicating with native speakers.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and we will catch you on the next one.